Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for February 3rd through the 9th. And this week is about returning to your values. This week we have Venus, the planet that represents relationships and beauty and love and values, moving into the sign of Aries. And this is really important because Venus will actually station retrograde in this place next month. So we're getting a little inkling, a little insight as far as what's to come around returning to this sense of what is truly important for you. This week we also have Mercury and Jupiter and Mars and Saturn making some aspects. Overall, I think this week may feel inspiring, invigorating, and I'm feeling that there's more of this sense of ease and flow and sort of tapping into what it is that's truly important to you. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so excited to share the astrology of this week with you from a depth psychological perspective. So let's first talk about Mercury making a trine to Jupiter. So this is Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury moved into Aquarius last week, made a conjunction with Pluto. Their Mercury-Pluto last week was sort of this correlation to intensity of awareness, possibly things coming to light, new information coming on board, and especially something that maybe has been unconscious or subconscious or outside of your conscious awareness in some way, becoming conscious in a way that maybe can sort of, I think sometimes Pluto can have this sensation of like sharpness or catharsis or sort of like confronting something. And so that happened last week with Mercury. Now this week with Mercury is a very different tone. This week, Mercury in Aquarius is making a trine to Jupiter in Gemini. Trines are where the planets are in the same element, in this case, the element of air, the element of communication and movement and fluidity and this ease of things being able to transfer or to come together. And so Mercury, of course, is our mind, our thought process, our the analytical part of our mind, our ability to communicate, to form words, to decode things, to make sense or make meaning of things. And then Jupiter being the planet of our philosophy, our belief systems, our can be our spirituality or our religious principles. Jupiter is also about exploration and inclusion, and Jupiter represents this function of expansion and growth and taking on more and being open to new experiences. So this week with this trine, it's this harmonious, easy flowing aspect. So this can be a symbol of having a lot of big ideas. So a lot of bright ideas. It can also be more effortlessly connecting into your optimism or your hope or your sense of faith in yourself or in others or in life in general. I think also there's this theme around with Mercury, Jupiter, around inspiration, around feeling like all of the pieces in your mind are clicking together, like things are working, things are flowing. Can be because Jupiter is about expansion and growth, and Jupiter is the principle of more, whereas like in contrast, Saturn is the principle of contraction and finiteness. Jupiter is about like always doing more, taking on more, expanding and growing. And so I think that it can also be a symbol of exploring other options, exploring other ideas, like this massive flow of new information or new ideas or communication. I think because these two planets are very connected to learning, whether you are learning something yourself or you are transmitting or offering education or learning to other people, it can be about learning through experience in particular, gaining information through experience. Jupiter tends to be about philosophy, but also experience as well. So it could be firsthand experience or learning through the experience of others. And I think also this could be a symbol of maybe shifting your philosophy around something or shifting your belief around something in the spirit of more ease or more life-affirming growth. Now, those are all of the wonderful qualities of this particular transit. And I want to say, just because it's a trine doesn't mean that we always necessarily experience it as wonderful and lovely. Sometimes Jupiter especially can be a symbol of where we feel overwhelmed or we feel like there's too much, like maybe there's too many options or there's too many ideas, and then it can be difficult to choose, or it can be difficult to sort through things. This transit is not really a it's not really a sorting transit. It's more of like gathering everything in front of you, and then the sorting comes later. But for right now, there's really this sense of like openness and gathering and pulling in all of the different things. And so I would watch for, that's maybe a challenge that may come up around this, is feeling overwhelmed or like things are too much. And if that is the case, anything that you can do to invoke the Saturn principle, and we will have some support from the archetype of Saturn this week, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But anything that you can do to find a sense of being able to collect or sort or sort of like create a sense of boundariedness or containment around where things feel like too much for you. Especially because this is Mercury and this is air elements, Aquarius and Gemini. And also that Mercury rules Gemini. So there's a lot of analytical, mental, thought-based stuff that's happening, that's very active this week, that's very operative this week. And so fantastic time to really lean into talking or writing to process your thoughts. If you don't journal, this might be a great week to begin a journaling practice or to lean more into a journaling practice. Just like free writing, like not to be like pretty or anything like that, just to get everything that's swirling around up in your mind, to get that through the hands. Mercury rules over the arms and the hands, to get that through your arms into your hands out onto the page, so that you can get a little distance and perspective. That often is very clarifying. And so the other piece of this transit as well is that Mercury is also making a subtle, supportive sextile aspect to Chiron in Aries. And so Chiron tends to symbolize healing, also like this sense of like learning or mentorship or like refining or honing your craft, what it is that you have to offer and what it is that you have to receive, and that there's often this interconnection between the giving and receiving quality. And so I think this also adds this element of healing around the way that you think or the way that you process, the way that you take in information, or the way that you verbalize things. And then also another component of this is that Jupiter is stationing direct this week. So this means that because previously Jupiter has been retrograde, and this is important because it means that Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion and also like taking on more things, will move farther forward into the sign of Gemini. Right now, Jupiter's at about 11 degrees of Gemini, so it's sort of like about midway through the sign. And Jupiter will move forward again, and it will sort of finish up its transit through the sign of Gemini in the next several months. And so this also is wherever Gemini is in your birth chart, whichever house it's occupying, that area of life, it may feel like whatever is growing or opening or expanding, or where things just sort of, there's a little more flow and ease wherever Jupiter is, whenever Jupiter comes in. That's going to continue to elaborate over the coming months. And this week in particular marks this shift in energy where it's not like Jupiter isn't doing its Jupiter thing when it's retrograde, just like any planet. It's more that the experience of Jupiter, growth and expansion, is more internalized when it's retrograde versus externalized. And for many of us, it usually feels better when things are more external in that way. Not always, of course. So again, there's kind of this like shift and pivot, and I quite like that all of these are happening together. The Mercury-Jupiter trine, Mercury sextile Chiron, and then Jupiter direct. There's this sense of things coming together, being able to access more opportunity, feeling like you can move forward. I think also just feeling a possible either a reconnection to a sense of hope or optimism, or feeling like maybe you can see things from a different perspective. And I would say if you're like listening to this and you're like, oh, it's been rough, like I know that it has been for many of us, or where hope and optimism is very difficult to come by at this point in time. I certainly am not trying to say that this transit is going to like totally flip all of that and remove hardships, but there's something here that helps you connect in to something that helps you connect into something that is meaningful to you. And again, it might be like a lot of internal thought busyness, and in that case, how can you channel things and create like a catch basin or a catch container for where it feels like too much. So that's a big energy that's happening this week. A lot to think about this week, I think, and we could also simply say there's a lot of information out there, and so how can you find a sense of grounding, find a sense of being able to process all of the information that is coming your way. Okay. Also, what's happening this week is Venus is moving into Aries. And so Venus is the planet of love, relationships, beauty, aesthetics, the arts, our experience of femininity, or the feminine-based gender experience. What else did I want to say about this? Venus is also very connected to our values, what it is that we value, what we're drawn to, what we find attractive, what we find pleasing or soothing or inspiring. And it's also, following that thread into the more psychological piece, it's also very connected to our experience of self-worth or self-value. And so Venus tends to spend about a month-ish, we could say, in each sign. Venus's movement into Aries is really important because it's going to spend quite a bit of time there. And so Aries, of course, is the planet Aries is the sign that is about the self, the independent individual autonomy. It's also very connected to our experience of acting enthusiastically, like deciding and then doing, and moving forward, taking action. This sort of like, I think that Aries has a sort of rapid energy to it, where it's like, I'm thinking a friend of mine recently said of Aries as a stereotype psychologically, that it's like quick to anger, but then quick to get over it. It's like, I'm angry, I'm happy, I'm sad. It's like everything is sort of, there's not, so it's a cardinal fire sign. And so each of these qualities, both fire and cardinal, there's a rapidness to it. And there's also this sort of like fresh, initiating kind of energy. Cardinal signs are about beginnings. Fire signs are about passion and enthusiasm and instincts. And so Venus moving into this sign is Venus representing all of the areas around relationship, love, beauty, aesthetics, and self-worth, that is going to be channeled through the lens of this like passion, enthusiasm, what gets us excited, how we experience our sense of individual, independent fieriness. And I think that, so we could say, I think that this Venus being in this place, issues especially around self-worth and values are highlighted or emphasized or brought up for experiencing it in a more direct way or a more specific way. I think that we could also say that there's a quickening around like wanting to move towards the things that you love or the people that you love or the situations that you love. I think that there could be an energizing or a reconnecting to your passions, what's really important to you. I will say also, I think Aries in particular, there's sort of this like, it is so much about the self and the individual experience and where and how you are moved to do or to take action and your own sense of selfhood. I think that with Venus being here, there's especially an emphasis around self-worth and how you feel like your value as an individual human being. Like, what is that? Where does that derive for you? Where do you get your sense of purpose, feeling purpose, and the things that you're doing in your life? How do those align with what it is that you value and what it is that you enjoy and are drawn to? Now, okay, so I'm going to give you some details because astrology is cool because we can always look back and look at where a planet was before to get us a little insight as far as some of the symbolic or archetypal themes. So for Venus, okay, so first Venus now. So Venus is moving into Aries this week. Venus will be retrograde in March. So it'll be retrograde from March 2nd until April 12th. And it will be retrograde from 10 degrees of Aries to 24 degrees of Pisces. So it's actually going to retrograde from Aries back into Pisces. And we're going to talk about the Venus retrograde more and more in the coming weeks, so don't worry. But I just want you to kind of have in your mind that most of March and then the beginning of April, there's going to be this Venus retrograde. Retrograde being where there's an emphasis of focusing on these issues, in this case, relationships, self-worth, beauty, and there's often an introspective quality to it. So it can be thinking about what this thing means to you, what these things mean to you in your life, and it can sometimes be contemplating where you're at with something, how you feel about something. Sometimes in this retrograde process, you have realizations about maybe what something means to you. Maybe you have insights and you're able to make meaning or to gain insights on something that happened in the past. And sometimes that leads you to want to make changes in your life. So those are kinds of we're like starting to enter into that territory already. So also, Venus will not fully exit Aries until June 6th this year, June 6th, 2025. So Venus is going to be in Aries for like quite a bit of time. So it's kind of funny because we have Mars retrograde still happening, right? So Mars stationed retrograde in Leo in December last year, December 2024. It's still retrograde. It will the retrograde will end for Mars in February. And then right after we have Venus retrograde. So it doesn't always happen like that, but we got a lot of like retrograde self-contemplation stuff that's happening. And what we can also do is look back at when Venus was previously in Aries most recently. So Venus is in Aries about once a year. So last time that it was in Aries was during the month of April of 2024. Venus was in Aries. During the month of February and March of 2023, Venus was in Aries. And during May of 2022, Venus was also in Aries. So you can, contemplate, look back, look at your calendar, look at your journal, kind of like what was happening, what were you feeling around those times? And that's going to tell you a little bit about what the quality of your experience may be during this time and some of the themes that may come up. Now, really important, it's not like something is going to happen. I'm totally not a fan of like trying to like say that an event is going to happen, that it's going to be the same kind of event. Like if something happened in April of 2024, that doesn't mean that that same thing is going to happen now, but we're looking kind of like, we're sort of like looking symbolically. We're looking at what are the flavors or the feelings or the themes, and that those themes return sort of like we're spiraling back into the quality, the feeling tone of those things. Now, also, Venus has an 8-year cycle. So what's really cool about Venus is wherever it is today. So, for example, the moment that I'm filming this, Venus is at 28 degrees of Pisces. 8 years ago, today, Venus was at the same point, about 28 degrees of Pisces. And so we can also, wherever Venus is at any point, we can look back 8 years ago and Venus is at that same place. And so we can also get a quality feeling tone from that. So that means that Venus was retrograde in Aries in the spring of 2017, 8 years ago. And so you can also look back at that period in time, and that might be more, I would say like maybe more striking or more dramatic, because it wasn't just Venus in Aries, it was Venus retrograde in Aries. Okay. All right. I'm going to like wrap up the Venus talk. That might be way too much info. If it doesn't, you're like, what are you talking about? Don't worry. Just let it wash over you. So some things to start thinking about with Venus moving into Aries this week are thinking about what's really important to you, what you really truly value, most certainly like what your experiences of relationships, of femininity or the feminine experience. What are your values? What do you love? What are you drawn towards? Which, I think, of course, these might be difficult questions to ask and like these are questions to chew on. And I think especially what your experience is in relationship and how, like your feeling of feeling drawn to other people. This is very much a Venus kind of theme. And so these are things that just to kind of like notice what's coming up, especially around relationships this particular week, because with Venus's ingress initially into the sign of Aries, we can look for signs or omens or synchronicities to sort of be like this marker of what we may be experiencing and working on and working through in the months to come. Now, also with this Venus's movement into Aries, Venus will make a subtle and helpful aspect to Pluto, a sextile aspect. And so I think this is also a potential for this week for self-discovery via relationships, for like understanding more about yourself via the way that you relate to other people. Okay. Also happening this week is we have Mars in Cancer, still retrograde, making a harmonious, helpful trine to Saturn in Pisces. And so these two planets are in water signs, Cancer and Pisces, and they're in this flowy kind of relationship. They're on the same page. And this may correlate to experiences where you have a motivation to act, a motivation to do the things, to take charge, take on challenges, to work towards accomplishing something, especially a long-term kind of something. Mars and Saturn in this aspect can sometimes look like feeling energized, feeling motivated. I think it can also be potentially this week where maybe you get feedback on something that you've been working on for a very long time. So something where you've been really efforting can maybe possibly, it can feel like there's a clicking into place or a moving forward, or and it's still Mars and Saturn, so it's not like Jupiter, though of course we do have Jupiter very operative this week. But there's kind of like this, like getting into the groove sort of feeling when we have Mars and Saturn like this. And so I actually really like this because I think that Mars Saturn, though of course it's still Mars retrograde, which is this more internalized version of Mars. But it's this, Mars Saturn has this sort of grounding, practical quality to it that I think may be anchoring for the Jupiter Mercury aspect. For Mercury trine Jupiter. Whereas Mercury trine Jupiter that we talked about at the beginning here, that feels very like light and airy and like up in your head, kind of, can sort of like be easy to feel overwhelmed. Whereas Mars Saturn, even though it's in water, there's sort of like a more of a gravity feeling tone to it. Now, what I want to say too is that we are nearing the end of the Mars retrograde process. We're definitely not there yet, but we're kind of like rounding maybe in like the final sort of chunk of time, because Mars retrograde will end at the end of February. And I think at this point, we probably have a little bit of a feeling of what Mars retrograde is about for us. And so I think that especially this week with Mars making this trine to Saturn, it can be helpful to think about from December to now, how you have experienced Mars themes, which are anger, agitation, frustration, assertiveness, advocating for yourself or for others, being direct, being upfront, and like really any things that you've been grappling with around these issues. I think that Saturn connected here can show us, like Saturn's very much about the reality of things. Saturn is like, here are the results, for better or for worse. And sometimes we like the results, sometimes we don't like the results. But Saturn often shows us where it shows us where something is sustainable or not sustainable. It really correlates to these times where we see what works for us and what doesn't work for us, or where we're investing in something that is within our integrity, or maybe where in contrast, where maybe we've overextended ourselves, or we've done or said yes when we wanted to say no, things like this. So I think there's also a lot of feedback to be had this particular week around your experience of this particular Mars retrograde. And Chiron is involved in this aspect as well. So Mars is making a square to Chiron in Aries. And so, of course, Chiron is around healing and giving and receiving really from the heart, and things that feel of meaning to you. I think that it can also be really connecting into like this sense of meaning in life, or the things that you feel like you're called to do or you're meant to do, and the very healing experience of that it can be healing when you're able to give and to receive in a way that feels reciprocal. And so I think this week there's some healing to be had around connecting with your sense of Marsness, your sense of vitality, being able to confidently assert yourself in a way where you're showing up authentically, not trying to control or manage or overly take responsibility for other people, but like showing up in this as like I'm imagining it as almost just like you're like this pillar that's standing there, and you're like, yes, this is me, here I am. And there's this healing in that. There's this sort of empowering quality to it. So that's what I have to say about that. Okay, last thing that's happening in the astrology of this week is that we have our first quarter moon in Taurus on Wednesday, the 5th of November. And so I think, so the moon cycles are connected to our emotional feeling quality of things, and also just kind of like the more day-to-day, like where we're at, the flow of energy, both personally and then collectively. And so the first quarter moon is this moving out, moving through, taking action. It's more extroverted. We're halfway between the new moon and the next full moon. We had our new moon in Aquarius last week. We'll have our full moon in Leo next week. And so I think this is just the way that I'm feeling into this, because it is this first quarter moon in Taurus, and it's sitting with Uranus when it's happening. And so I really feel this sense of like moving through resistance towards change, like sort of channeling all of these energies that are happening this week, this like sense of all the ideas, all the thoughts, connecting with your philosophy and your belief system, and then all of the efforting that you're doing, and then channeling that through into something that feels meaningful to you, something that you're inspired to do now. Okay, so I'm going to pull some tarot cards for you. And as I'm shuffling, I have 3 reflection questions for you to stew on, given the astrology of this week. So first reflection question is, what are you instinctually drawn to? And how does this, whatever or whoever this is, how does this enhance your life or not? Second reflection question is, where is there flow, ease, opening, or curiosity for you this week? Or even opportunity? And how can you explore this, wherever or however this is? Where do you feel like this opening in your life? Reflection question number 3 is, what patterns are already arising in relationships for you? So what patterns are you already starting to sort of notice that are coming to the foreground? And what are those patterns maybe trying to tell you? What are they communicating to you? And of course, always asking these questions from a place of open curiosity. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay, so I'm going to pull some cards for you, and I invite you to get into a place or a position where you can feel comfortable, relaxed, and connected to yourself. You may want to either find stillness or find some movement, anything that helps you to, first and foremost, physically feel like you can settle. Even if you're moving, the sense of like being able to settle and relax and feel soothed. And then connecting in with any sensory experiences that you have. Noticing how your body feels. Noticing the sensation of your breath moving through your lungs. Noticing the temperature in the room or place that you're in. Noticing any sounds that you hear around you. And then imagine yourself within a beautiful bubble of light, this beautiful protective bubble of light that can be any color that feels good for you right now. This is also a wonderful time to call in the presence of your spiritual guidance team or ancestors or angels, whoever, whatever it is that you have a relationship or connection with, who is a benevolent, guiding presence. Ask that they are here with you to protect you, to help you, to guide you, and to communicate with you in a way that you can easily understand right now. We are so very grateful for their presence here. Okay. And then bring your focus into your heart. And from this place, maybe a question or an inquiry arises for you. Good. And then lastly, I'm picking 3 cards, so you can choose a number between 1 and 3, and then that card will be special for you. Okay. Okay, cool. So, 3 cards. First card is the Ace of Cups. What a beautiful card this is. So the image in the card in this particular deck is an image of a hand holding up a very beautiful chalice looking cup, and the cup is sort of just sitting in the palm of the hand, and the cup has 2 fishes on either side that sort of look like what do you call that, handles. 2 fishes on either side, and the fishes are like spitting water out through their mouth. And in this in some systems of tarot, this is of course connected to the water signs and the water elements, that being Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So Ace of Cups is of course this new beginning card, this new beginning around this, I would say not just new beginning, but like a renewal, a rejuvenation. Like this card, all of the aces, but this card in particular to me is so much around like this refreshing, rejuvenating, like new energy, new life, new vitality coming in, and sort of like this emergence of like from the depths, something coming in to renew you. So it's not necessarily like something external happens, though of course it could be, but it's sort of like there's something that comes from within you that is regenerative. And that could be, of course, around relationships. So gosh, yeah, it's quite funny that we've been talking about Venus retrograde, and this is such a renewal or a new beginning around relationships or relationship dynamics. Now, I did pull this reversed. So what a perfect card for entering into the like beginning phases of an upcoming Venus retrograde in Aries, that this is reversed. So I'll also say, okay, wait, what do I want to say first here? So I think this week overall, of course, there is this theme around relationships and new beginning, and an emerging theme of relationships and contemplating relationship dynamics for you. That it's reversed, so it's also connected to our emotions, of course, being a water sign. It can also be this sense of connecting in with your emotional vitality, like your emotional enthusiasm, or like emotional well-being, I would say even. And that it's reversed can mean a couple of different things. I think that it can certainly be like turning the focus more inward in an effort to restore or replenish. I think sometimes when the Ace of Cups is reversed, it can indicate that we feel depleted, that we feel like we're overgiving, that we feel like we're doing a lot, but we're not actually receiving. That all of that energy and effort and love is like just sort of going into the void. There's not like a reciprocal kind of situation happening. I think sometimes too, this card reversed can be a symbol of feeling insecure, or like not safe or secure. Like there's sort of like a little like wondering or not really knowing, either emotionally or in relationship. So there can be kind of like this insecurity. And when I say insecurity, I think we often think lack of confidence when we think insecurity, but the way that I'm feeling into it in this moment is like insecurity in that things are not feeling stable. Things are not feeling predictable or consistent, and that has an impact on our nervous system. I'm really also thinking about, like, for example, those of us that had a unpredictable caregiver or unpredictable experience in childhood, where for whatever reason there was not like an experience of consistency, whether that was like emotional unavailability, or a caregiver or parent having a health issue or something like this, that creates this tone where there's a feeling of like not really knowing, and sort of heightens the default setting to dysregulation. And so this, again, all of those different things. So I think like really one of the biggest qualities with this card, especially if this is your card that you chose, is around finding ways to correct the flow so that you are feeling replenished or rejuvenated. And if the flow feels like very distorted, like it's not happening, okay, like what's going on there? What's happening? Where is there like emotional energy that's kind of being dumped out in a way that's not regenerative? Okay. And as always, love hearing how this is sitting for you. Okay. Second card, another cup card, is the Eight of Cups. And so in this image, there's a person like at the very front of the card that it looks like they're sort of like leaving a trail of cups behind them. Like there's sort of this trail of cups from behind. And they have their hands on their hips, and they're just like walking forward in a very kind of confident fashion. They're wearing this really cute, sort of like sassy purple dress. And they have long, dark hair. This card in some systems is connected to Saturn and Pisces. Interesting that we have Saturn and Pisces right now. And in some systems, the like term for this card is abandoned success. So, and I pulled this up right. So this card often symbolizes a leaving of a situation. And it's usually leaving something that is like done. You've played it through, you've exhausted all of the options. There can often be a sense of like disappointment or sadness around letting go of the thing or leaving the thing. But usually it's a symbol of leaving something that just like isn't it, and moving towards the things that are it, whatever it is for you. And I'm also feeling the Venus retrograde kind of tone here as well. And I want to say, always we're taking these not always so literally, but like psychologically as well. So this could be releasing thoughts or belief systems or like ways of being that are outdated for you, that have it like they've met their expiration date, like whatever this is, this quality or this way of being. Because we pulled the Ace of Cups initially, it leads me to think that maybe it's around emotions or relational dynamics. There's something here that you're ready to let go of, or to surrender, or to walk away from. I think walking away from or like moving on from is a big theme with this card, because it's in the image in this card and in the traditional Waite-Smith deck, the person is walking away from something. And so again, like we're taking this as, you know, if there's something literally in your life that you're like, yes, I want to like stop doing this thing or whatever, that's great. But also it might be simply letting go, or like kind of like loosening your hold on thoughts or ways of being. There's something that's like ready to fall away for you. And then the third card is the Chariot. And this card, the Chariot, is often connected with Cancer, the zodiac sign. So in this deck, there's this person sitting on the hood of their car, this kind of like cool blue and teal car, and they just look totally chill. They're just like, hey, what's up? I'm just hanging out. So the Chariot is a couple different things. So the Chariot tends to be about moving forward of your own volition, your will, your determination. Also is very much about connecting into the sense of, this is what I want and I am proceeding accordingly. And this like holding both your wants and your desires, but also moving from a place of having a plan, having a well thought out plan A, B, and C. Like really this balancing of both the emotions as well as the more intellectual kind of function, or the thinking function. And so as I'm looking at this, I'm feeling like there's maybe something new that's emerging for you here. And it might be more of this internal process, or it might be more around how you feel alive, like how you feel replenished or rejuvenated, like your vitality is really at play here. And then there's something that's sort of like transitioning out or away for you. And I don't quite know what that is. You know, you'll have to, maybe there's something that's coming to mind for you now, or maybe this is something to contemplate and to even reflect back. And then whatever this like dynamic is, that leads to action, that leads to movement. I think the Chariot is really cool here because the Chariot is so much about this sense of clarity in your direction. Like there is no like uncertainty with the Chariot usually. It's this sense of like, yes, this is it. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. And it doesn't mean that you won't, that you can't change directions, but there's a sort of, there's this determined sort of quality to it. But it all begins with this sort of like contemplating the more soft, vulnerable, emotional tone of whatever it is that's happening for you right now, which I think, can be sensitive. And so I think it's important to hold what feels very true for you. I would say with the Eight of Cups, like what feels true for you in your heart, even if it is not always convenient to feel that way, to like really connect in with the feelings. And then from that place, there's a sense of clarity. There's a sense of being able to move forward when we sit with these more emotional places. All right. That is your forecast for this week. I hope that you enjoyed this. It's always such a pleasure to make these videos or this podcast for you. I am wishing you a most easeful week and sending you lots of love, and I will see you soon.